Hello everyone, it's Shannon with Waffle Flower Crafts. In today's video, I'm going to share with you how to create a 3D sketchbook card using some new products from our July release. First up is the Sketchbook Combo. This comes with the Sketchbook stamp set and the Sketchbook matching dies in the back. I'll be using both of those today. This is the Bouquet Builder 2 combo. I'm actually only going to use the Bouquet Builder 2 stamp set from the combo. And I will add a stitched border using the A2 Nesting Rectangles 1 die set. We're going to start by making our sketchbook. This is the sketchbook stamp set. If you notice, the sketchbook stamp actually has the leaves and the flowers and the mug all included in the stamp. I don't want those images in my sketchbook. I want to replace them with some flowers from the Bouquet Builder 2 stamp set, so I need to create masks. I have 5 sheets of post-it notes stacked together. I really only need 3, but I did make a couple extra, and I'm going to stamp this sketchbook onto these post-it notes, this stack of post-it notes. You can use whatever ink. I'm just going to use Memento Tuxedo Black. Then I will pick it up here and I will cut out the inside, the interior of the pages. So I'm cutting out where all those images are, and I am cutting at pretty larger than the images, so I'm cutting close to the edge a little bit here. So I'm going to cut out both of the inside parts of the 2 pages in the sketchbook. Now that I have my mask created, I'm ready to start stamping on my paper. I have 3 pieces of Bristol paper here. I'm going to do some Tombow dual brush pens, coloring with them, watercoloring with them, and I found the Bristol paper is the best paper for this. I'm going to show you how I put the masks in here. So that goes to that page. I'm going to turn it over and then place it right on top of those images inside the sketchbook. I'm going to do the exact same thing with the second page, flip it over and place it right on top of the images I don't want in my sketchbook. Now I'm going to rearrange my piles of masks here, just arrange them just how I placed them on the papers. This way, so when I pull from the right pile, it goes on the right sketchbook, and from the left pile goes on the left page of the sketchbook. That's way I just don't get confused, because the other masks do not have the images stamped on them. So now I'm inking up the stamp, so the masks are still on top of the stamp, and I'm inking it up with VersaFine Onyx Black. Now that it's all inked up, I'm going to remove the mask, use a tweezer here so I can get in there and remove them and peel them off, and those masks protected that interior part from getting inked up. Now the post-it note paper is very thin, and that first inking, it takes a lot of ink to kind of ink up that stamp the first time, so the ink kind of bled through the post-it note. You could try to use some thicker paper besides post-it notes. Maybe copy paper would work, or maybe 80-pound or 65-pound cardstock if you have some of that laying around. But I worked with the post-it notes, it was okay. The second and third sketchbook I make, I have very little bleeding because I'm inking it up on top of a previously stamped image that I didn't clean. So now I'm stamping the second sketchbook, placing my masks on top again, inking it up just like I did before. Now this one requires less ink because I didn't clean my stamp in between stamping. Now I'm removing the masks, and then I will stamp my second sketchbook. Now if you have any little slight small imperfections, you got a little bit of that interior inked up, so you stamped a little bit of the leaf from the mug, don't stress. I will show you how to kind of clean that up. Plus, a lot of this page gets stamped over. These blank pages will get stamped over with some of the flowers from the Bouquet Builder stamp set, and that will cover up any of those little imperfections too. So it doesn't have to be absolutely perfect. And I'll show you a couple tricks for hiding some of those blemishes as well. So this is the third and final sketchbook. So now I have all 3 blank sketchbooks stamped in VersaFine Onyx Black on Bristol paper. So now I'm ready to stamp the interior images on my pages, but before, I'm going to clean up this one sketchbook page here. I'm using a Tombow sand eraser. These erasers are so handy for cleaning up little small ink mistakes. This is a really handy tool, and I just used it just like I would a regular eraser, and it picked up or lifted up the ink on the surface of the sketchbook. So now I've grabbed a flower from the Bouquet Builder 2 stamp set, and I'm arranging it here. I'm going to use my Misty to stamp it. I'm arranging it over the sketchbook pages the way I like. Now a little bit of it hangs off. I want to mask that off. So I'm using the remaining portion of our mask that we made in the very beginning. I'm going to trim it down a little bit more. So I'm cutting really close to that bottom edge. That's the bottom edge is the one you should be most concerned about. None of my images go up to the top. None of the flowers I arrange go up to the top. So just they start at the bottom pages of the sketchbook. And I remove the center part, move that spine, and now this is ready for me to use as a mask. So I'm going to pull off, I'm just going to use the top layer, I don't need any of the other ones, and I'm going to line it up exactly with the sketchbook on the Bristol paper. And I'm going to actually grab a little bit of piece of tape here just to hold that little cut part where I had to get my scissors in to cut out the interior. Just hold those two edges together. And now I'm going to ink up this flower with VersaFine Onyx Black ink. I'm using VersaFine Onyx Black because it is a waterproof ink, and like I mentioned earlier, we're going to do some watercoloring with Tombow dual brush pens. So I just stamped it, now I remove the mask, and I've got this page finished and ready to color. I'm now doing the exact same thing with the other two flowers from the Bouquet Builder 2 stamp sets, and stamping it on my other two sketchbooks. But I'm still using the mask for each one because I don't want to stamp on the bottom pages. I just want to explain a little bit better. When I did trim that remaining portion of the mask down, I was just trimming right along the bottom edge or the black line of the page of this sketchbook to make a really tight mask. That way when I stamp the flower, it stamps all the way to the bottom edge of the sketchbook. So I just want to make that a little bit clearer. Now I have all my stamping done and I'm now ready to color. I'm going to zoom in here so you really get a good look at what I'm doing. I'm starting with my Tombow markers, coloring directly with the marker to the paper. I have the colors on screen so you can follow along. I start by just coloring the back pages of the sketchbook, and this paintbrush which I stamped off camera, this is from the sketchbook stamp set as well. And I'm just coloring, leaving some white spots for me to move and get a lighter value and create a gradation. And now that I've got the color down, I've got some water and a paintbrush. I'm using a number 1 round brush here. I dip the brush in water and I use very little water. You'd need only a small amount to get this ink moving and flowing. And I'm just going over all those areas that I colored with my marker. Now I'm moving on to the flower itself. I'm using a pink here, and this is going to be kind of my medium shade because I will blend this out, and every place that didn't get colored will be kind of a lighter shade of pink. This is my dark shade, kind of a dark red, and I'm coloring in all the darker points on this flower. Now that I have the image all colored, I'm going back, coloring or blending over, making a gradation on the surfaces of these petals with a just a damp brush. I don't think I can stress enough, you really need only a small amount of water to get this ink moving over this Bristol paper. It's pretty amazing. And I'm going over and just blending like the red and the pink together and also creating that soft gradation on the petals. I'm going to continue this until I have all the petals colored, and then I'm going to kind of do a little different technique. So I have a piece of plastic here with a white paper taped underneath so you can kind of see the color. I took an orange, scribbled it on the surface, and now I'm picking it up with my brush and painting over the flowers just to add a little bit more color, kind of an orangey pinky tone, and it just makes the flower a little bit more interesting and visually appealing. I also grabbed a little bit more pink to kind of darken some areas, and now I'm adding a shadow with a blue that I've watered down a little bit and just going around the edge of the flower, and this just kind of makes the flower pop a little bit off of the page, and that flower is done. I'm going to pretty much follow the exact same process for the other flowers. Again, my colors I'm using are on screen so you can follow along, but basically I color in the petals, or I color in the flower with my markers, and then I go in with my brush and water and kind of blend the colors out and create gradations. And then I always add that little shadow. I'm going to play some music here while I finish up these last two flowers, and I'll meet you back when I'm just about done. back. I'm just about finished with the flower now, just finishing up that shadow, and now I'll hold it to the camera so you can see, and that completes my third flower. So now I'm all done with my sketchbook. I'm now moving on to my background panel. I have an A2 panel here of 110-pound white cardstock that I cut using the largest die from the Nesting Rectangles 1 die set. That just adds a beautiful stitched border to this panel. And I'm now going to do a ink blended background with Distress Oxides. I started with my lightest shade, which is Wild Honey, moved on to Spiced Marmalade. Now I'm blending the pink, which is Picked Raspberry. Once I finish this, I'll move on to my final color, which is Wilted Violet. I'll blend this bottom portion here with the violet, and then I'll go back through my colors just to kind of smooth out the gradation a little bit and make it a little smoother. These Distress Oxides are great for blending. They blend so smoothly with minimal effort. Now I'm just spritzing some water on the surface to get some beautiful water droplets, and then I will pick them up with a towel, and this adds just a nice interest to the surface of the panel. Now I'm moving on to creating my book. The first thing I'm going to do is trim off this remaining portion of the bookmark that we masked out earlier. Just using my scissors here and removing it from the bottom, and then I will use my scoreboard here, lining up one of the notches in the scoreboard with the spine of the book, and then just scoring right along the spine of the book. So it's easy and it folds perfectly. I'm going to do that on all three of these sketchbooks. And once I have that done, I'm ready to assemble my book. I'm going to start by arranging the pages the way that I'd like them to be. And I'm starting with this first book, putting glue on the back side of the right page and gluing it to the left page of the second sketchbook. Now I'm going to repeat this process for that second sketchbook and that third sketchbook. And now I have my book all completed. I'm going to set that aside and then glue my blended panel onto an A2 top folding card base made from 110-pound white cardstock. I'm using liquid glue here, so I have a little bit of wiggle room. I'm just going to hold it down. I did stamp my sentiment, which is from the Bouquet Builder 2 stamp set, off camera earlier. And now moving on to just doing a little bit of cleanup. I have a little bit of that bookmark still remaining. I'm going to use a white gel pen here to cover up that bookmark and any other little imperfections. I'll just use this gel pen, color over it, and that will hide any of those little places where the interior is stamped and I didn't want it to be there. Now that that's all done, I'm ready to glue it down. I'm going to use some more liquid adhesive and just glue the back side of the sketchbook, glue it down. I am going to press down on that center image just to make sure when I do put this in an envelope that can lay flat. So I want to make sure that can lay flat, but you can still open the pages. And now I'll put a little bit of glue on the paintbrush, and then that will complete the card. I'll hold the card up to the camera now so you can see all the details and get a good look at those pages. The concept of making this 3D sketchbook is actually very simple to do. I did make it more complicated by choosing to mask the interior of the pages and then stamp a very detailed image on the inside. But you could definitely make this very simply. This 3D sketchbook you saw was very easy to put together, and it's such a fun surprise to receive on the card. I hope you guys enjoyed today's video and project. If you want any more information on the awesome products that I use, please visit waffleflower.com, and you can follow us on YouTube, Instagram, and Facebook for more creative ideas. Thanks for watching.